call to action for those who would unleash hatred on the streets of Melbourne. National topic, theage.com.au/national. Victoria, theage.com.au/national. Protests, theage.com.au/protests HNP. Editorial, September 2nd, 2025, 5 a.m. While there were a few arrests, the streets of Melbourne did not run red with blood on Sunday. Instead, they were tainted by something far more insidious. A toxic wave of hatred masquerading as nationalism and pride. The event was officially labeled as an anti-immigration March for Australia, which peaked with a few thousand participants clashing with a counter-protest and a pro-Palestine demonstration. Similar protests erupted in other cities as well. A hallmark of a thriving democracy is the ability for various groups to publicly express their opinions on a wide range of issues. The Age has consistently emphasized that the right to protest is fundamental to our society and must be safeguarded. However, it has also criticized instances where protests cross the line into unacceptable behavior. The March for Australia on Sunday was undoubtedly one such instance. Before delving into the reasons behind this editorial stance, it is important to recognize that not all participants in the protest were driven by racism. Our reporters engaged with a diverse array of individuals who held differing views on immigration. Nevertheless, it was hardly surprising that extremist groups would attempt to hijack an anti-immigration rally for their own agendas or as a means of self-promotion. In recent years, political leaders from various parties have acknowledged the public's concerns regarding Australia's immigration levels. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, net overseas migration surged to 555,798 in September 2023, following the lifting of lockdowns. By last December, that number had decreased to 340,750. In 2024, net overseas migration emerged as a significant factor influencing demographic changes across all states and territories. In Victoria, for instance, the natural population increase was recorded at 35,272, while migration accounted for 100,503. However, the March for Australia rally in Victoria was marred from the outset by the presence of neo-Nazis, led by the notorious racist and National Socialist Network figurehead Thomas Sewell. As he spoke on the steps of the state parliament, he attempted to present his extremist views as a legitimate political stance. Yet, his use of terms like thoroughbred Australians laid bare his malicious intentions. At that moment, it became evident that the anti-immigration march in Melbourne had been taken hostage by a vile intolerance, contradicts the very essence of what Australia stands for. Rather than fostering unity, this demonstration sought to divide and reshape the country into a breeding ground for ignorance and prejudice. The abhorrent mindset of the neo-Nazis and their supporters was further highlighted after the march when they stormed Camp Sovereignty, an Indigenous sacred site and ongoing protest in King's Domain. Police Minister Anthony Carbines condemned the incident as a gutless act of bullying. The confrontation that ensued resulted in injuries to 4 individuals, including one woman who required hospital treatment. Only the most twisted and ignorant minds could even begin to justify confronting first Australians as part of a migration protest. There exists a legitimate and proven method for enacting change in Australian society and influencing policy: running for parliament. However, if the leaders of this hateful movement were to pursue that path, they might quickly realize how insignificant their views are in the broader context of this nation. Australians have consistently demonstrated through their voting patterns that they have little tolerance for the kind of hatred displayed on Sunday. Sewell's group aspires to gather enough followers to establish a political party, a party that resorts to violence to showcase its values deserves no support from the public. As has always been the case, a small minority of misguided individuals on the fringes will resort to the only means left to them to gain attention: violence and noise. It has been encouraging to witness state political leaders come together in their condemnation of the events that transpired on Sunday. White supremacists do not represent the people of Victoria. They do not embody the spirit of Australia. They do not even reflect the majority of those who participated in Sunday's protest. If there were a need to cleanse our nation of a stain, reasonable individuals would advocate for the removal of neo-Nazis from our shores. They are simply not welcome here.